Good morning. We are in the grand metropolis of Cookstown. What can I tell you about Cookstown? It's named after its founder, Alan Cook, who was a Scottish planter, 17th century Scottish planter. And this is an English colonial settlement. Cookstown, its Irish name is An Cor Corach. And there's actually quite a lot to see in and around Cookstown. Places like Spring Hill and Logan House and Darva Forest and such like. Population in 2011 was 11,500, so it's probably up on 16,000, 17,000 now. So we're talking about 1620. Townlands of area leased by English ecclesiastical lawyer to Dr. Alan Cook from the Archbishop of Armagh, who had been granted the lands after the flight of the Earls. And one of the significant things about Cookstown is this unbelievably long main street. It is 1.25 miles long. It's the longest main street of any town in the island of Ireland. It's unbelievable, and it's really wide as well. It's 41 metres wide. And this famous long street was laid out between 1735 and 1800. And this is the cenotaph here to the dead in the First and Second World War. And actually there were so many men, young men, went away from Cookstown to fight in the First World War and Second World War, that the town was actually decimated of all its young men. And Cookstown, as well as being a market town, was a major linen town. But this all ended in and around, or came to an end in and around the 1950s. And unfortunately the railways were ripped up as well. The railways were ripped up as well. The man did it up either. I think they lost the railways in the early 60s, which was a shame and disgrace. So I'm standing at a sort of a high point, and the end of the town comes to an end down there. In and around the early 1600s, Cook fulfilled all his promises or covenants, and 10 houses, Old Town Cookstown, with front gardens, I might add, were laid out. The town in 1628 was allowed a royal dispensation to have 2 weekly markets, but then the 1641 Irish Rebellion versus the planters came, and Logan was a major ironworks, and that was producing spears and weaponry and all the rest of it. And in 1643 Cookstown was razed to the ground, and now this was a major setback to the town development, and it sat basically idle for 100 years. And in the 1750s onwards, the new town was developed with the wide street, and John Nash, the famous architect, was brought in to build quite a number of buildings that are still about the place. We're talking about Killymoon Castle, and we're talking about St Lucan's Parish Church. And from what we have seen this morning, the town is thriving. There's very, very few empty shops, and there's evidence here on the main street of a lot of old buildings. That looks like Georgian to me. And there's Macatami's traditional butchers, and there's little hints here of the past. This is Molesworth Street, and I bet you not too many people know why it's called Molesworth Street. Well, it's named after Reverend John Molesworth, and he was knocking about in 1807 or thereabouts, and he was in St. Lugan's Parish Church. Between 1820 and 1840, the population of the town multiplied by 4 because of the 4 new linen mills that were established. Gunning's Linen and Weaving Mill and Wellbrook Finishing Mill and all the rest of it. And of course the coming of the railway changed everything for the better. And this is an interesting establishment up here. This is amazing looking. Now if I can read this, which I can't, I'll have to go up closer. This is First Presbyterian Church, Cookstown. Minister Reverend Isaac Thompson. Now this church building looks amazing. That looks like sandstone to me. Can't get in here. There's a padlock on the front gate, which is a pain in the head, but that's the way it goes. Don't know any real details about this place, but it's probably built in the 1800s. And that Presbyterian church is built in a sort of a barn church style, and I presume that this is the manse. This is the minister's lodgings in beside it, the manse. Yet another very interesting building architecturally. This is Logan Parish Hall. And there's no date or anything up on it, so I just don't know where the date's from. And there's no education board, which is disappointing. And this is another interesting building from Cookstown Main Street. This is the local Methodist church, constructed in Romanesque style. And we're just looking at the notice board, and look at the name of the minister. Isn't this interesting? That's not a local boy. And oh, praise be, they've got a wee plaque. Primitive Wesleyan Methodist Church. This is a primitive Wesleyan Methodist church. I've never come across this ever before. I've come across Methodist church, but not primitive Methodists. And Bible and Missionary Society Meeting House, 1825. Isn't that lovely? And this is the old technical college, which is now a day centre. And I would imagine that has been around a while as well. And we're about halfway down the town. Well, maybe 2/3 away. And you can see that there's quite a bit still to do. And this is a significant building on the corner again. And this is Chapel Street, and this building in a previous life was a Chinese restaurant, but in a previous life to that it was an old railway house, because the London and Midland and Scottish Railway ran here, and this is dressed sandstone, and it's a wee bit neglected at the minute. And let's hope that they can do something with it. There's no dates or anything on this either, unfortunately, which is a shame. And again on the main street of Cookstown, and this is Holy Trinity, and it is a significant building architecturally and historically. Look at the frontage of that, look at the spire on that. That's magnificent. And the upkeep of this must be colossal. And if you come to Cookstown and you want a traditional bar, this is the Cartwheel Bar. I can't tell you when it was founded, but it's traditional, and I think you'll like what you see. Absolutely fabulous.
Right. Well, come here, Catherine, will you remember the Stella? Can I get the clerk to talk to you about that? And who would that be coming from?
And this is the Mulgrews, who were original owners of the bar.
Not the St. Valens of the delivery.